All right, in this video, we're going to talk about the 5 key players you need on your injury recovery team. So we all know, let's be honest, dealing with injuries or pain is extremely tough. Whether it's something acute or chronic, it can be very difficult to deal with. If you're fresh out of surgery or dealing with a long-term injury or just trying to figure out how to function in your daily life, one thing is key: you really don't have to go through it alone. But there's a couple mistakes we generally make. One is we try to grind it out solo, making it much more intense than it needs to be because we don't want to be a burden to others.
Remember, there's no I in team.
And on the complete flip side, there's leaning way too hard on one person, whether it's a spouse, a best friend, or a parent, expecting them to be a therapist, chauffeur, chef, motivational speaker, all in one.
I can't do everything, man.
Obviously, neither of these are ideal, so let's talk about some solutions to building your recovery team. So the truth is, recovery is a team sport. It's incredibly difficult to do solo. And when you have the right mix of people and support, it actually reduces stress, speeds up healing, and generally makes the whole thing just a lot better. So let's dive into the 5 major types of support that can help on your recovery journey. So number 1 is trying to find emotional support. So this is generally the person who is the rock that always shows up for you, that steady sort of support. They may not fully understand what you're going through or haven't been through it personally, but they're always there to listen to what you need or just let you vent.
I said to myself, run, Beth. Then do you know what the klutz did?
No, and I don't care.
And one thing to note about emotional support is that not everyone is good at it, and that's completely fine. So generally try to play to people's strengths. Some people want to fix things instead of listening, or vice versa. Some people get awkward when feelings get involved.
I'm not great at farewell, so that'll do, pig.
That's the worst goodbye I've ever heard.
You don't need everyone to be your emotional rock or that steady state. You just need 1 or 2 people to show up. And if you have that, that is massive. So you can try and identify who those people are for you and really tap on them when the time comes. So number 2 after emotional support is that tangible support. So you could say the reliable helper. We know that recovery is exhausting, and some days it's not just your mindset that's the problem. It's the fact that you literally and physically cannot do certain things. And this is where that tangible support comes in. The person that can drive you to PT, bring you food, run errands so you don't have to navigate the grocery store on crutches, or if it's the sort of tangible help where they help lift your leg out of a CPM machine in the middle of the night after hip surgery because you're not able to lift your leg. If you don't know what a CPM machine is, that's awesome. But sometimes that tangible support can just mean dropping off a coffee in the middle of the day and reminding you that it's temporary. And number 3 is informational support. So you could think of this as kind of your recovery advisors or the people that help you make informed decisions, not just guessing your way through recovery. And in general, within that informational support, we think there are 2 really beneficial types. The first one is pretty obvious. This is the medical professionals, but worth mentioning because these are the experts that really help you get back to where you want to be physically.
Doctor, what is more serious, a head injury or a foot injury?
A head injury.
Well, you don't have all the information.
And number 2 are the people that have been through it themselves. So these are the other patients that really get it because they've lived through it, and frankly, they know how much it blows. So if you've ever tried explaining your injury or surgery to someone who hasn't been through it, they obviously mean very well and try to understand, but it's hard if they haven't personally experienced it firsthand. A funny example of that, me going through it, is explaining my hip surgery to people, letting friends and family know that I just had hip surgery a couple days ago, and obviously people were very sympathetic and understanding, and then 4 days later would ask me to play golf. So I still have a massive wound with stitches and have to be on crutches for another 2 months. Sometimes people, having not been through it, don't fully understand just how frustrating and how long that timeline is. And that's where connecting with others who have been through it can be extremely helpful. They don't just sympathize, they understand the setbacks, the weird pains, the mental toll, and generally are very willing to help because they know those frustrations intimately from their experiences.
It's frustrating. It's frustrating. It's frustrating. It's frustrating. It's frustrating. Get the hell off of me!
And additionally, within informational support, we want to look at what are some places to find good information, obviously beyond speaking with docs and other experts. So one great place to start is your own circle. So if you have friends, family, coworker, or even just someone you run into at PT, another patient that have been through similar injuries, that word of mouth is always a great way to get good information because those recommendations that people are giving generally come firsthand from them using them or from someone that they know have used them. Another great source can be online communities. So recovery forums, rehab-focused social media, whether that's things like Reddit or Facebook groups, and obviously our BounceBack app, which aims to be built specifically for injury recovery and chronic pain. But these can be extremely useful for firsthand insight, especially dealing with injuries and pain. It's not always straightforward. So gathering input for people that have lived through it firsthand is extremely beneficial. Another great place are educational resources and advocacy organizations. So for example, YouTube is a great one. A ton of helpful videos from people looking to help. And that's obviously what we're trying to do with our channel because personal experience with a background in psychology really trying to get things that have helped us out and to help other people. There are other great channels. For example, another one that focuses on the physical side is Low Back Ability. It's really a person that had lived through pain and herniated discs and really just trying to help others get through it because he has been through it and he really cares. So there's some great resources there. In addition to these, you have specific orthopedic websites that have really useful blogs and reliable and beneficial information. One such example of that is the Stedman Clinic in Colorado. It's a top orthopedic clinic that puts out great information. You also have things like the renowned Mayo Clinic that puts out really useful information for patients. So those are some examples of excellent resources. And you got to take a lot of these with a grain of salt sometimes because the internet gets a bad reputation when it comes to medical insight or advice, and for good reason. A late night WebMD search can turn a mild headache into a you're done, you're finished type of self-diagnosis.
I have this lump on my breast, and WebMD says that it's breast cancer.
Obviously that's extreme, but we've all been there with that sort of overreaction. So obviously you need to use common sense when looking at these various forums and things like that, but they can be extremely useful because a lot of people in these situations in large part are because they're going through similar setbacks and looking for insights similar to what you may be looking for, or have been there and are just looking to help because they know how frustrating it is. So number 4 within the 5 major categories of support to build your team are the medical experts or the medical support. So these are the surgeons, the physical therapists, occupational therapists, or other specialists, trained professionals who have seen hundreds, if not thousands, of recoveries. So there's some obvious overlap here with the informational support category since these experts can really give medical information as well as provide medical advice, but we'll keep it all things medical in this category just for simplicity. And while it's absolutely essential to listen to them, it's equally important to be an informed patient because the reality is that not all doctors agree. One might say you need surgery, another might say let's try rehab first. Or even if they do agree on surgery, they could disagree on the type. One may push for a minimally invasive surgery, the other might push for a full reconstruction. And rehab protocols vary as well. So some PTs might recommend early movement, while others might recommend a much more strict immobilization strategy. And most importantly, if your case isn't super straightforward, it's a really great idea to get a second opinion or even a third. It might make things a little more confusing before they start to make sense, but the wrong treatment plan could be a much bigger problem down the road, and taking the time to figure it out first is the way to go. As a relevant example to that, at one point I was scheduled to have a relatively minor shoulder cleanup surgery after dealing with years of pain and 2 previous shoulder surgeries that did not help, both with significant recoveries. I was going in for another surgery because it was still giving me pain after all these years. I was obviously looking forward to the short recovery period from the cleanup procedure, which made it very enticing. I ended up getting a second opinion that really identified something that the others did not see, and this was a Hagel lesion, which is a much less common injury from dislocating the shoulder years earlier. So all this to say that I was about to have a shoulder surgery that I did not need or would not have helped, and that would have been the 3rd such shoulder surgery because there was a problem much deeper in the shoulder, and if I hadn't got that second opinion, it wouldn't have been found. So Dr. Preventure, who's the man by the way, did the surgery and it feels great ever since. But the takeaway is really that doctors are critical, but you have to advocate for yourself, ask questions. If something doesn't sit right, dig deeper, and obviously the good doctors will appreciate this. Number 5 is financial support. So not to sugarcoat it, we know that injuries are expensive, especially surgery.
I am never going to financially recover from this.
So even with insurance, costs really add up. And beyond the obvious medical bills, there's extra stuff like missed work, adaptive equipment, numerous PT visits, etc. So obviously financial decisions are extremely personal. So within this video, we'll just touch on a few high-level aspects of support. So one thing to touch on here is if you're going through the process or need surgery and a lot of PT, be sure to find someone that's in network. If you find someone that's out of network, it can be unnecessarily expensive. Another great place to look for financial support are employer resources. So some workplaces have injury leave benefits you may not know about if you hadn't had to use them before. They also have things like health savings accounts that can pay for qualified medical expenses that you may not have previously looked at if you hadn't had to use them. And lastly, of note, if you can afford it, a lot of experienced PTs these days are starting practices that are self-pay only, that do not take insurance. So if you can't afford it, there are a lot of high-quality PTs that are spinning off on their own, and they don't accept insurance largely because insurance is a massive pain in the ass for them. There are obviously great PTs that do take insurance, but just noting here that there are a fair amount that are spinning off and doing cash-only clinics. So if you can't afford it, it could be worthwhile and something worth looking into. So obviously financial stress makes recovery harder, so look into what's available for your situation, and if nothing else, most importantly, try to stay in network with your insurance. So we'll wrap up with a few additional tips on how to help you build your recovery team, beginning with how to ask for help. So obviously asking for help seems really simple, but it's actually surprisingly difficult. Most of us don't want to ask for help because we don't want to be a bother.
All you gotta do is ask.
And the thing is, most of the time people are extremely willing to help, they just don't know how. So the key is to be specific. For example, something as simple as, would you mind taking my dog for a walk this weekend? I'm still on crutches. That's extremely helpful and specific.
I need your clothes, your boots, and your motorcycle.
There's something interesting called the Benjamin Franklin effect, which is a funny psychological quirk where when someone does you a favor, they actually like you more and are more likely to help you again. And it's where people don't just help because they care, they actually care more because they helped. And people generally really want to help. They just don't know how most of the time. So if you want it to be helpful and useful, just ask and be specific. Another quick tip we'll touch on as you build a recovery team is to protect your energy and know who to sideline for now. The mental load of recovery is already plenty.
Thank you. Thank you. Hopefully that'll keep away the bad energy troll.
So if there are people that are more apt in your life to complain or drain your energy, really try to set boundaries so that you can get back to where you need to be. This isn't about cutting people off completely by any means, just about setting boundaries and really giving yourself the space you need to heal.
You need space.
So to summarize and wrap up, if you're feeling stuck or isolated, start small. Support is often there. You just have to look for it, ask, and be specific. And really don't be afraid to ask because most people would be ecstatic to help. They're very willing, they just don't know how. So I know I've been in that situation many times. So be specific with your ask and don't be afraid to get it out there. Obviously, you can start with friends and family or coworkers or even local community resources. You can look at online communities and support groups. And then obviously the BounceBack app, because sometimes really the best support comes from other people who have lived through it. And lastly, if you're in a completely new situation or location and you don't have anyone nearby to help you physically, hospitals and doctors generally have some sort of patient care advocate that can help with those sorts of services, whether it's transportation to and from appointments or post-op care. These options are really there for you as well. Obviously, that's more of a last resort, but it's still there. So we know recovery is tough, but with the right people around you and the right support, it gets a lot easier. So build your team, ask for help, and where possible, cut out what's weighing you down. So even if support feels out of reach, just start small. Even one person, one conversation, or one step at a time can be really beneficial. And drop a comment below and share your experiences of anything or anyone that helped along your journey. And as always, if this video was helpful, hit subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video.